Hey, welcome back to the X Podcast for part 2, where I get to hang out with some of my favorite people, and hopefully you got to catch up on part 1 last time and meet our good friend Andy, who, where do we start? Is the coolest punk rock friend I have. And built the cars that became Fast and Furious. Has his own marketing company, and we had a surprise twist at the end on top of everything else going on in his life. He is a crazy man who not only runs a 37-employee marketing firm, but also is a church planter, pastor, 7 full-time staff at the church, and it plans to be an astronaut.
Yeah. Where do you want to begin?
Well, we ended
real?
the last one just kind of fascinating that you live in both worlds.
Yeah.
And so maybe just like quickly, how do you manage both worlds?
Yeah, I guess probably how did I even get to this place? So I said it in the last podcast. My dad was a pastor. He was my pastor my whole life, and so and my grandfather was one before that. So there's something in your blood, right? But you got to be called to this. This is not. Trust me, you can be good at something. That does not mean you will have the hand of God on you to do it. And I thought that I was going to take over my dad's church in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale. That was not God's plan for me. And I was kind of frustrated most of my young life when I even had the agency and was working at the magazine. When I was working at the magazine, I was always knowing I wanted to work for the church. I wanted to work for the church. My dad would never give me a job. He always wanted me to have a vocation. And even when I was transitioning from the magazine to the agency, there was a lull right there. And I'm like, this is obviously God working. This is the time. And my dad said to me, as hard as it was for a dad, he said, it's not the time. I know you want this, but I don't feel that this is God's timing for you to start working in the church. I had no job, right? I figured, wait, but when he did that, it opened the door for me to start this agency.
Yeah.
Which ultimately taught me a lot of things on leadership. It taught me how to work. It taught me how to grind even more than I was, and it taught me how to serve. Really, that's you're a business owner. You serve. And so even when I was having when I'm owning this agency, I wanting to work in church, my heart was there. But it wasn't until there was a need for us to have an office in Charlotte. I had my office in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale, and there was a need for us to have a presence in Charlotte, North Carolina, because of all the racing and the automotive stuff that was going on there. I moved, me and my family, to Charlotte to open up an office. And I knew, my wife told me one day, hey, if we make this move, what you wanted to do, that's over. Meaning, hey, you probably will not take over your dad's church. And there was a young man that my dad was grooming. His name is Adam. He's my cousin. He's the rightful pastor of that church. He always was. God had that worked out. But I had to make a choice. Like, that door was closed. I moved to Charlotte just to open up my office. By doing that, I put that behind me, and I got involved with the church. I serve pastors. I love them. They've always been in my life. So I started to serve an old pastor. His name was Dr. Joe Brown, and in Charlotte, and he was the one that called it out of me 3 years after I moved there, said, hey, God has his hand on you. We should go plant a church. And I've been around church planters. It's the worst idea you could ever have. Miserable. Yeah, plant a church. I'm like, I'm not planting a church. I'll hang out with you. Plant a church. I had no business planting a church. I think that's the greatest way you can get into something is when you know you're inadequate, you have no business doing it. Because if it's going to make it at all, it either you don't even have to go to science to figure out if God's alive. You can look at my life right here and say, okay, if this thing survives, God has to be alive in this. So I planted something, never with an idea. So there's good church planting organizations now. You have ARC and others and stuff. I never knew about any of them. I never followed one church on Instagram. I never followed a pastor on Instagram because, they're not cool. So, I never would have followed anybody. I feel so badly now. But I never would have followed any of them.
We don't have hair like that. Glasses. I agree.
So, for me, I had to figure out what this whole church thing was, but really what God was trying to do is just get a hold of my heart. I decided to, yes, we'll have a service, but we never made a plan of this is how we're going to build a church. It was just, let's do service one. Service one went to service two, service three. And it started with me and about 5 or 6 friends and a few families under the hand of this pastor was launching us. But We didn't have a name, nothing. I struggled with this. Gosh, I didn't even have a conversation with my wife about this because she saw it coming. She's like, you're going to do this, right? And I was so embarrassed because I am a marketing executive.
Yeah.
I am a design executive. I create. What, tomorrow I'm going to be a pastor? What does that even make? That makes zero. You are not qualified. You are not able. None of these things. So, yes, we started 7 years ago on August 27th, 2017. But it was just to have a service. It was not, in my mind, I was never launching a church.
Yeah.
I was just having a service, but we had good branding. So it was
marketing guy here. We had great brand.
Great branding. I knew how to build a brand. I did not know how to build a church. And the key is the minute that you think you know how to build a church, God'll do something different. And so that was the greatest place I could have been. In my dad's home church, I would have known how to take that church and done something with it. I would have ruined it because it wasn't mine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But in this church, in Factory, I went from being a super confident, creative marketer to the most humble, low, insecure human. I speak for a living in the marketing world, and now I'm stumbling and stuttering. And that's exactly where God wanted me.
Wow.
And so you started with just a service, and then you guys did another one, At what
Week
point?
388 this Sunday, 388. I keep the weeks because
Is it?
Yeah, week 388.
This is week 388?
Yeah.
And so when did you realize, no, wait, this is a church? Because you started, it was under a guy, but didn't he kind of go, hey, I'm out?
Yeah, he stopped showing up. And,
and he goes, let's start a service.
He stopped showing
leaves.
up, and all the people that were coming because he was there stopped coming as well. So we grew the church. I think the first service was 133 people, which now, church planters, organizations, they want you to launch with 300, which is all right, whatever.
Yeah.
But we had 131 or 33 people. And I was like, oh, God, all right, thank God. And it was under some turmoil. You know how all this stuff is. It's just not good. And we started out of an Embassy Suites. The convention center has these little rooms and stuff. It was not great, but I had some key people that were there with me, Service 1, that are still with me now. Wow. But then he showed up, which was amazing. And I used his Facebook page. I'm still an admin of his Facebook page, and he has a lot of people because he was he pastored a large church in Charlotte. Then he stopped showing up, and then the people that came stopped coming because they figured out he was not going to be there. And so we grew that sucker, though, to a good 42 people.
You grew it backwards, right?
Yeah. I was like, we had more in our Sunday school class than this church. This is a terrible church. We can't call it a church. It only has 42 people. It's terrible. And the whole atmosphere was terrible. But you stick with it. So you have a choice. Do I stop or do I go? And I'm struggling now with owning a company and working full time, and also trying to figure out how to do this on the weekend. I didn't know how to do it. Maybe I still don't. But you just decide. I'm gonna show back up on I'm gonna show back up on Saturday, and we're gonna do a setup inside at the time Embassy Suites. We'll have church of whatever that means, and you learn.
And so you went from there. It just, I assume, what's a quick history?
Yep.
It grew little by little. It did over 7 years, right? Year 1, year 2, 3, 4. When does it?
Year 1 and 2, we went nuts. Year 2, so 18 was really good. 19 was bananas. 19 was the first time, and I know people this is stupid stuff, right? But we geek out on this. And there's markers in church and attendance and all that junk. 19 was the first time we hit close to 1,000 people.
Wow.
So you're a year and a half in it. I had 1 employee.
Wow.
I just hired my second one, which she's amazing, still with me now. She gets mad at me a lot though. But we just had 1 or 2 employees at the time. It was an event that we created. We started doing these. What's church? What does it even mean? So I'm just doing things because I'm disrupting everything that I begged my dad not to come to my church because I knew I would urinate on everything holy, right? Yeah. It's all right, they're gonna know. My mom used to send me messages. She's like, "Hey, I know you think today was good, but no one's gonna come back." And I'm like, I don't know.
Your mom?
Oh, yeah. My mom would always be like,
encouraging.
she's like, look, you can't be just firing confetti out in the middle of the audience. I'm like, I would do things that made me laugh and just disrupt the audience because then I can teach them something. Because people come to church and they don't really tune in. So yeah, we scaled really heavy in 19, but we had no processes, no strategy. It was a mess. And then COVID hits, of course, and we can talk about that all over. But what COVID did is it slowed us down enough to develop
systems.
Yeah, build systems and stuff. And I had a brilliant girl named Casey that works alongside with me, and that's when we started to hire people because we turned. Oh my gosh! In COVID, everything had to go digital, right? But that was when we shined.
Yeah.
We know how to create content. Lord, would you send me somebody that knows how to pray? No, but I'll send you a producer and I'm like, all right, I got producers and video people, but
camera people.
Yeah. And it was the perfect thing for that timing. And we launched, we just went heavy during the pandemic with creating content in digital. And so then obviously like every church, it was weird coming out of the pandemic, whatever that meant. But now where we're at now, it's, it takes some time to find your authentic voice.
Yeah.
And I think each church, like you guys have an authentic, beautiful voice, but it's different than the church down the street.
Sure.
And for me in Charlotte, I just started to fall in love with the fact that God would allow me to use me on a Sunday, and he would give me that shot. And,
Yeah.
Love that.
It's beautiful, not just because of your story. And, even the first time we met in LA, just hearing full circle desires that you had and how God's brought this full circle and how God's using you. But the unique expression that you are in Charlotte, like even just today over coffee about, I think what was the majority of your budget is even outreach. Like you're a highly outreach-driven church. And even just stories, I don't want to make you more emotional, but of what the unique approach you have to the homeless.
Yeah.
Where you take trucks that have showers and baths and ways for people to clean clothes, and you go out into the woods and you create dinners and one person in particular that people said, oh, y'all need to meet, that you ended up befriending this homeless man who became a dear friend of yours. You wouldn't say this on the podcast, but you ended up building him a home near your house where he walks through the woods. It's just, I mentioned in the first podcast, your generosity. And, of course, the spirit of the leaders, the spirit of the house, that's just an overflow of your church and the reputation you've built in the city. And I think it's amazing. And
I think I was challenged with what is church and what does it have to be. Now, I've learned a lot over the years. There's elements. But one thing that frustrated me was the church kind of that I grew up in never left the building. So we never did a lot of things outside the world, in the world, because the world was always, that's of the world. Let's just stay in our cube. And we never affected the world. And I just felt, wait, God built me a certain way. My day job is I'm affecting culture and creating culture. I'm affecting the world every hour that I'm working my day job. Now I'm going to come to a church and insulate us from it? Right. Sounded strange. So the outreach thing was just an outpouring of my heart of, I believe we can affect people, but I don't think you can do it without loving them. So the outreach pieces, and we teamed up with different people that had, trucks to give our homeless neighbors showers and wash their clothes. And it ended up us meeting a man that was in charge of this whole area in Charlotte called Tent City. He was just like the mayor of Tent City, and his name's Daniel Baker. And he's my closest, I love him. He's a close friend. I travel with him and stuff now. And so we ended up, helping him. We built him a little home, and then now he's in a home close to my home, and that I'm with him quite a bit. But he's changed my life because he taught me how to love, and he's wild. Man, if you go on, you go on iPhoto, and you can go in all your photos, but then it shows the faces of the most people you take photos of. He's the first one. I have a family. I have a full-blown family. I've got a 16-year-old son and a 21-year-old beautiful daughter, and my wife is my best friend. But the most pictures I have
next to Daniel
is Daniel. Yeah.
There's a few things. You live a wild life.
And it is wild.
Everybody has different kind of lives they're called to live, or that they even want to live. But there's a few things like a chemical compound, I think, of your life that, if I could say it this way, if anybody desires to live an interesting life, and I think it's what also has helped you create an interesting church. And I'll just throw a few things out and go where you want to with it. But number one, your highest priority is just so obviously to me, people.
Yeah.
You are one of the most intentional, aggressive relationship builders I've ever met. And you can tell.
Aggressive relationship builders.
And I mean that in a 100% positive way. And you're so well connected around the world with people, but it's not like, oh, you're just trying to get in this circle, this circle. It doesn't matter who it is. You are so we met we spent one weekend together in LA.
Yeah.
And you have been one of the most intentional friends in my life. I told him there have been mornings, me and you haven't spoken in a month. And you'll send me, you won't even know. I don't even know if I've told you, but I was, it's been a tough morning for me, whatever's going on. And you will send me the most timely text. Hey, I was praying for you. God put you on my heart. And you'll send me stuff. And I'm like, which I guess that would be my second thing. We talked about this over coffee today. Me and you, one of the similarities of our stories, besides me helping create some of the Fast and the Furious, is that I was raised in a church where really, not in an offensive way, the Holy Spirit was he was the weird uncle that theologically was on the shelf but not really engaged.
Right.
And when I stepped into a setting where it wasn't weird but it was real, that's what changed my life.
Yes.
Was, oh wait, God's real.
Yes.
The same thing for you. And I am always enamored by people who are supernatural in a normal, healthy way.
Yes.
And I think you're that. And then my third thing is, you've said this several times. You said this in the first podcast. I can tell you're a big believer in moments, and zeroing in on moments.
Yep.
And there's a big movement right now in learning to say no, boundaries. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on this endeavor of, I think we've lost our ability to say yes. We've lost our ability to say yes to the inconvenient conference, to say yes to the inconvenient travel, to say yes to the opportunity that might cost us but might actually gain us the world. So there's my three.
It's funny, you make me think of something. I was dealing with a young person that works for me, and this week, and boundaries, right? We gotta have them. Okay, got it. Whatever. And they're good, but at what cost? Because sometimes we can wall ourselves up so deep with a boundary, but at the same time, we want to be successful. Or we want to get an opportunity. And the person that can help you with that opportunity is on the other side of the boundary you just made, but you can't go to it because you just created a boundary. So I think there's going to be somewhere down the road, somebody really smart is going to figure out how to help people mentally say, hey, rest is very, very important, but pay attention to when somebody walks into your life that could actually open up some doors. Or if there's a mentor that says, hey, would you like coffee? The answer is never no.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to have coffee. I was looking at this young man whom I love. And I'm like, you want to be successful on certain things. And I'm sitting here, and my time windows are rare. They're weird. And I'm texting him being like, hey, I want you to help me with this. I'm going to launch this. I want you to be part of it, or I want you to be part of my life on this, or have lunch with me. And he didn't realize it, but he's like giving me all the reasons why he couldn't. And I'm like, hey, no, I'm going to tell you why you must. Not because I'm anything that you are not, but because, hey, I've been down this road.
Right.
I want to help sow into you. I want you to stand on my shoulders. I want you to I want my shoulders to be your floor, But sometimes we can create these boundaries and they are good, but we got to also leave some margin for hey, when these mentors call, or when something is an opportunity, you do the hard thing.
Yeah.
You never get anywhere without doing the hard thing.
Yeah.
No, I love that. So your church, what's I don't know. How do you, I guess when I go back to the church, instead of talking about the church, 'cause your church is fun. It's fascinating. You do a lot of crazy events. You guys do, that kind of stuff. How do you personally manage both those worlds? Does it affect you? Because it is two worlds.
Yes.
And one is not just the church world, but it's the leading the church world and all of the things that go with that. The other is completely business.
Yes.
Marketing, cars, fun stuff.
No, we got to make money. If we don't make money, we don't have jobs. You have to make money.
So just how do you manage that from your time, your mental energy?
So one thing is people are important. And the people that work for me on both organizations. So I have people that work for me at Theory, and they're dear to me. I love them. And I got people that work for me at Factory. The staff there, these are you have it here. I see you do it. These are people I would bleed for. I would stand for. I will continue. We're able to do what we do because of those people there on the front line. The staff members I have at Factory help me run this. Now, that being said, how do I, as a leader, I balance this? And I'm passionate about both.
Yeah.
I'm become more passionate about one that I didn't know I was going to become more passionate about. But, you'll do what you love. You'll make time for things that you love. What I didn't realize was I was going to be interacting and encounter the Holy Spirit the way I did. And that changed my life drastically. So I will make time for that. Mm-hmm. And what I want is in my church, I disrupt everywhere I go. And I disrupt in my teaching, I disrupt in my church, I disrupt in my marketing agency. The disruption is we were just taught that in marketing. We got to disrupt you from flicking and scrolling, right?
Right.
What makes somebody stop on something on Instagram and like it or whatnot? It's disruption of some sort. So I disrupt a lot in my services, and we do crazy things. But then it's because now I'm going to tell you this, and I really just want people to engage and encounter with the real God. Mm-hmm. And when you have a really wild life change, you want others to experience the beauty of what this is. Mm. And I just go into Factory each week with wanting them to have that. Now, how do I balance it, the organizations? No, I don't know. I know that I don't put too much pressure on myself to be great at either of them. I work really hard at both of them. Mm-hmm. And I just know that I had to make a choice. Probably the things I would do at night for myself or on the weekend, I don't go on the lake on the weekend. I don't, I got a bunch of cars that I've collected over the years. Nice ones. I don't get to use them as much anymore. And it's okay. I will at one point in time, but I have to make the choice. What is important to me at this time? What I feel God's called to me. Mm-hmm. And God's called me to this church. So I'm going to make the choice of I'm going to forego personal things. Mm-hmm. And it's okay because he's going to fill me in a different way. And by me foregoing those personal things, because I have these two organizations, I put any free time that I would have to do hobbies, I put it back into the church.
Hmm. Okay, quick question then. Now that you've kind of been if I can put church planting as you're an entrepreneur, you're a serial entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. It's like launched theory, into the magazine stuff, but
yep.
Launch theory, and you've been running that for over 20 years now, or 20 yep. years now this year. Yep. And then now Factory. Mm-hmm. What are the similarities and the differences between building or launching and creating something in the marketplace for something ministry-based or church?
I think there's
probably a lot of similarities, but there's probably some differences. So what would you say?
The difference is we can yell at somebody that works for us at the agency and just get in line and just do your job. But the minute we say that to somebody at church, like, you're a volunteer, just do your job, they cry and then they leave you a 1-star review and then everyone's mad and they send you an email. We don't even we have this one thing, they can send an email for complaints and I just laugh at it. Yeah, back in the day, I used to post it on the screens. I'm like, so-and-so sent us a bad email. We would just post it, and it would be like, and I would leave their name and everything.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Oh. So people stop doing that when they leave. They just say, stop doing that real fast.
At the end of the day, we don't know what we're doing. We're all trying to do the best that we can. So, yeah, there's some great similarities. There's some things of okay, and once I get into the church world, it's like grace on everything. It's like, well, what about doing your job?
Yeah.
How about doing your job? We got to do the job still. And so you learn, man. This is a journey. You learn. I think everything I think that I almost get to, and I'm like, okay, I know how to do that now. It's some other curveball of, no, you don't. And I believe that's the beauty of what God has called us to. He has called us to an impossible job. It's not even remotely possible what he has called us to. Mm-hmm. Leading a church of people that were praying they have some kind of heart change to serve, to give, to come into a service, to set the atmosphere of a service and be prepared for it when their kid is crying, they are overweight and mad about that. They're just all the things, right? That's a thing.
That was so specific.
That was so random.
Because when you
they're mad because they're overweight.
I thought you were going to say they were overwhelmed. They're addicted.
No, you gain weight, your clothes don't fit, and now you want me to raise my hands in worship when I feel like it's a thing and it doesn't work, and that's what God has called us to. And the problem is it's impossible.
Hey, Pastor Tim, can you fit that in tonight? The third night of Awaken.
I got nothing.
So at the end of the day,
look, if you're here tonight,
now I know the differences between the marketplace and the ministry. You're overweight and mad about it.
Yeah, they're overweight in the marketplace.
So tonight, you may not feel like you have the energy to bring God your best. You may feel like the worries of life are weighing you down.
Like you got a few
may feel
LBs.
just because you're way too overweight that you can't lift your hands tonight. But in spite of that, right now, by faith, lift up a sacrifice.
Well, What were the similarities, did you say?
Well, okay, so now let's think about building a church. Here's the thing. The building the church is we want to reach people, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we
Marketing.
we got to target, we got to market, we got to lower funnel, we got to disrupt. So the problem is that churches over the years, they never think of disruption as something good. You think of disruption as something, that was disruptive. But the problem is that if you do not disrupt, you will continue to have what you have.
Oh, trust me. Our church knows very well about disruption.
Great. And we're sitting in a beautiful place.
The stuff we've done did not, it reached a lot of people and made a lot of people not like us. I'll give you a few of them.
Please.
How about the name X Church?
Oh,
do you know how many people?
Do
you know how many people were like, we had Christians who would come up to us, and I know there's people in our church that don't even like it. That's fine. And we had people come up to us and they're like, why is it called X? And I would explain to them why, and there was a reason behind it and all that stuff. I don't know. I just don't like it. I literally told us that. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Good news is I didn't create this church for you anyway. So I know what I mean. I didn't tell her that. But you want to talk about disruption? I mean, like that has been our MO. I mean, from having a joint service at a brewery.
Yeah, I'm sure they hated you for that too.
We had some people when we were inviting going around telling us they're like, I just can't believe that you're even would do that. We weren't there drinking.
And we're in the Midwest. Andy, how would that go in the South?
No, not good. No, you're one layer above hell.
Yeah.
Well, there's some people that probably still put us at that level. Yeah. That's fine. I mean, we were loud back in early 2000, I'd say 2008, 2009. We were early adopters of like music was loud. We had lights. We had haze. This was before anybody was really doing that around here. There's a few big churches down south, but around here, I never saw anybody doing it. Yeah. We were one of the first doing it, and people were coming in and like, I'm choking because all the smoke. And we're like, it's not smoke.
Or it's too loud.
It's too loud, and we'd tell people, we're like, okay, but it was loud. It wasn't too loud because a lot of those, for some people it might be, and it's not that loud, but to me. But for some people, I think what it is it's louder than what you're used to. Mm-hmm. So you've gone to church for 30 years of your life, and it was so quiet, and this is different. But but you'll go to a concert, and I guarantee you it's 10 decibels louder than that the whole time. And you go, it's the greatest thing ever. But now I'm in church, and it's like, this is too loud.
You make me think of something of also when we're talking, it's intentionality. Right. So on the marketplace, I have to be intentional with everything we're doing in order to drive a sale.
Sure.
But in the church, sometimes we leave things to chance.
Or God.
But God wants us to be intentional with what he put our hands to.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that the church has been too, I don't want to use the word lazy because that's not fair, but too satisfied.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Now, hold on. Pump the brakes for a second. I believe that each church that God has, that Jesus is the head of, has a sound in a voice, in a calling. And not all of them should be this. Not all of them should be the one down the street. And when we have to be careful with is saying, this is what every church needs to do.
Sure.
We could just say, hey, here's some neat things that if you're at all interested on what has happened for us, we can do. But it is an intentional mindset. We're talking right now in our staff at factory. We're talking about progress. We want to see progress this year. But progress means something has to change. That means whatever I was doing up to this moment has to change.
Yeah.
That also means me. I'm going to have to do some things differently that might, annoy me or put me out of, put me out a little bit. But if I want to see the progress, it's like losing weight. I want to lose weight, so I got to change something. And so I think if anybody that's listening to this that's growing a church or trying to work in a church, intentionality of setting the atmosphere, intentionality of the chairs being really well, of it smelling good inside, the bathrooms being clean, of how we come in and out of a service, those things being intentional. And then afterwards, greeting people outside, making sure teams are set up to be able to do outreach. Teams are set up to have circles like you guys have, connect groups. The intentionality of that is important. The problem is we'll get to a level and sometimes get stale because we hit it, and you have to shake it up again and be intentional.
Well, I love that because you can be led by faith without being fatalistic. Like listening to you say that, I'm also reminded what some people would call, a dichotomy of over coffee. You'll still tell your team after all that preparation, hey, I feel like God's shifting us this way. You're so led by the Spirit, but in a way that's normal, healthy, and that doesn't abdicate planning and doesn't abdicate proactivity and responsibility. And I feel like we could talk to you forever. What's crazy is we're preparing for Awaken Night 3.
Yep.
And so we're going to have to wrap up in a few minutes because we need to strike this stage. By the way, one of the many things I love about you too, just shout out to my hometown. You're getting ready to share in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina in April. You're speaking at a creative conference with Bill Johnson's son, Eric.
Studio conference. It's a creative conference with Eric Johnson, Pastor Eric Johnson at Studio Church. Our mutual friends, Erwin McManus from Mosaic is headlining, and I'm gonna speak at this conference here in April.
That's awesome.
And that's gonna be a good thing, and it's good.
I'm about to fly in. Bring the fam.
Are you going to be talking at this creative conference, church world?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be doing theory?
Both.
You're going to bring them together?
Merge them. And in fact, Eric was the first one.
Eric
was the first one to actually force me to do this. And to say, hey, merge these two together and be comfortable with it. And so I posted something on my Instagram about it, and there's a link there to the conference and stuff, the conference page. But
how can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me at The Real Andy W on Instagram. At The Real Andy W is probably the best and safest.
And if they want to follow and cheer on the church,
it's the Factory Church CLT for Charlotte.
No, I love what you're doing, and I agree that the one thing that they both have in common, and I actually love I love anything that intersects. So I love the connection from you work at a marketing company that is all about how do we help people get the message out.
Yes.
The church.
Yes.
We're all about getting a message out to people of Jesus and who he is. So,
I had to go through that for 20 plus years of training, and I thought it was the wrong training.
It's actually really good training for how do I get the message out for Jesus in the church.
Training. And it wasn't the training I wanted. In fact, it was the training that I was offended by, that I didn't get a chance in the church. I was offended by my training, and it's the wax on, wax off, right?
Yeah. I think God knew the kind of church that he wanted to create in Charlotte, and it wasn't going to happen if you took over your dad's church in South Florida.
Yep. And my dad's church in South Florida is doing beautiful now, and it has the right pastor.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. And the church that we have is a different expression because I'm built different. And
you're a disruptor.
I'm a disruptor. But I will say this: being here with you guys is a blessing. And most people don't know when they're seeing this on screen. We're in this beautiful auditorium, and I think that I believe that the church has some beautiful years ahead of it, and it's going to be because of pioneers like you guys as well, that are willing to have certain conversations, laugh a little bit at yourselves, try some things. And I think if anyone's listening to this, don't stop trying things. Try things. And thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. Maybe we'll do another one.
Thank you for joining us. Yes.
We love you, and gotta get you back. We'll get you back soon. 2 days was too short, but you got to see a little bit of Columbus.
Ah, man, I've enjoyed it.
It's cold time, but I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tonight's going to be awesome. And check out all of Andy's stuff, his IG and his church. And until next time, we'll see them. Hey guys, it's Russ. Thanks so much for listening. We really believe if we can get around tables instead of behind screens, if we can talk to each other instead of at each other, we can make the world better. To help us do that, here are a few things you can do to help. First, if you haven't yet, leave a review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe on YouTube. This helps more than you know. Also, if you have been impacted by the community out of which this podcast comes, that's X Church. Maybe you're local or you've been touched by the messages and impact across the country, even the world. I want to encourage you to support this work. A powerful life principle is to invest in the people and places that invest in you. And so I want to invite you to do that right now by going to thex.church/give. You can give a one-time small gift, a sacrificial gift, or even become a recurring partner. Together, let's keep elevating the conversation, thinking higher, loving deeper, and making the world better. Cheers.